although I'm not a licensed journalist, but this is regarding all the topics in the news, and also uses as evidences what they're not capable or allowed to use as evidences. For example, where and how the reason they're supposed to be licensed journalists is so they could have accountability, integrity. But instead, they have stayed collusions with retired and standing interbranch at each modern country, which is also relative to where and how there are answers that nature shows an honest body of correlation regarding what caused problems with colors originally and still. A breaching method employed natures of laws, including witch trials, even if they were made up. We know to an extent witch trials they're made up. The narratives and defenses of the narratives regarding what people have told us, differentially too, depending on who was your teacher, etc. See, about what witch trials were about. Witch trials were about slavery. The tea tax was about slavery and how the laws forced everyone to pretend other things. It forced people consciously to blame other things, others, or ourselves for the worst causes of the worst negative value nature progressions, acts of nature. Acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures, wrongdoers, wrongdoing itself, criminal enterprises themselves. We know that America, our founders, they were things our founders communicated. See, communications is greater than and is simultaneously more finite than what is said. See, we have this not appreciated by the interbranch because they have stayed collusions, because they have stayed certain type of victim / hyper victim, where and how employed effectively by the breaching method at each modern, everywhere the species body has a body. Other things, others, or selves, blamed for the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. For example, one's in demonstration of how our names as a human species body of individual bodies, individually grouped and together, are different / us. Know how we have the same color eyes while we have different color eyes at the same time. Note how there are exceptions. Some people have watch Fox News, there's like a sea of blue eyes, which is, there are a certain type of victim, any natural difference. See, every natural difference. This breaching method employed it before anyone was born, including our founders, including the founders of other modern countries. Hyper evidentially recorded simultaneously where defenses of integrity or morality behind both sides and the difference of it, where they have weapons through lifetimes and the means to transverse the earth, but we're still in the suburbs designed for torture and extortion of our founders. We still haven't been allowed to address honestly, also because of the quality / IES aspect / IES in nature / IES, also all tactical ulterior from having followed the native hyper native system, the one that semi-ancients stopped following, even though they couldn't fathom. There are proofs that the ancients and the semi-ancients couldn't fathom. Anyone will forget how to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and nature, and why and how that requires valuing our differences. See, this employed economic systems apart from appreciation of, how nature uses the economic systems hyper additionally too. It uses exceptions in exception nature, hyper additional ways from the ways anyone could individually group it together could, even if everyone agrees to keep blame to other things, others, ourselves. self-value. Things like slavery. Well, how are you going to know? What do you blame it on? Blame it on what is true always. A breaching method, a human fact, human nature breaching method caused slavery. It was entrenched before our founders were born. We were supposed to address the fact, human nature, tortures, and slavery of our founders who had to counter extort to other founders. We're not supposed to leave this out with the interpretation of the words of any amendment, of any reading or value defense, syntactically, of the Declaration of Independence. Slavery was entrenched, northern colonies, southern colonies, and still interstates as one of the reasons witch trials are still entrenched at one of the spots right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, where George Washington and our other founders had to counter-extort 13 positions within more than 13 colonies that they had to force, trick, hurt, and persuade, counter-extorted. Then that method of laws and uses of them was to sense our own to our own. If anyone would try to be a nature of independence and or of unity, tactical ulterior from the criminal insidiousness natures of syntactical unity and independence treatment simultaneously entrenched, uses of the identity of relativity / hyperrelativity, worse than obfuscated consciously while pretending other. See, this is where criminal insidiousness as a nature with fact-keeping nature has been left out, because we have worse than criminally incompetent identities of law, because there's a certain type of victim / victim predator that has them sickly distinctly the crackers, which is the person behind the whip, and or just the label through with the contrast / correlation nature. See, correlation and contrast simultaneously are value, because there's a difference between hypercorrelation. There's a difference between possession / hyperpossession. There are 5 names for the verb as one identity of hyperpossession is 5 distinct identities. For example, simultaneously of distinct identities of possession over the reception as 5 of the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall / S, which comes also with discernment and demonstration by nature as nature of reception of positive or negative of the gases and the relativity to that. For example, with some certain types of squash, if you have them too close together, some people say it's because the bees won't find the flowers and they won't get pollinated. Some people say they won't get enough air. But we know to an extent, positive or negative is distinct relativity to these distinct identities that have a semi-nature relationship to their complete identity. The cell body and or the cell wall / S, where the different cells' identities connect. With that shared semi-nature relationship to the complete identity. There are proofs that the ancients had magnifying glasses and that they appreciated that how there is an identity the sciences share, and where they appear not to, that is also where constantly, increasingly is demonstrating simultaneously of where and how it uses exception nature and exceptions hyper additionally from how anyone could reveal use of them, individually grouped or together, even if someone makes it up. There is a singular volume science that is inseparable from all finite parts of each thing, from groups as a grouped identity of relationship to itself being shown to us as what is actually, unfolding as that which is making more and more forever nature. See, as each identity has an identity that is simultaneously greater than and more finite than the one that all parts of its physical body have all parts of the physical body semi-nature relationship to its complete identity. And so, but now, so in other words, so there is that identity that the other species, but they have two eyes. The giraffe has black pupils, whites of eyes, and no halo around them or exceptions, exception nature. No, we have the same color eyes like a giraffe, except there are differences. And there is a nature that is the same, except that it is different. A nature is a word that is relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. The same exact way identity is, but then again, further too, simultaneously, hyper-additionally. Physics, metaphysics, and identity are three volume sciences. But that comes with how each one simultaneously, with part of its identity too finite to fit with that, with each part individually grouped together, and too great to, per how it's showing us to describe this, per how it showed the ancients. English was revealed to teach this. There are constant needs. See, suits and ties and counters to it. All this time, they've had nuclear weapons means to transfer the earth, including our side. They haven't even explained that they've been used by a breaching method, measures and maintains itself being and having been left out by identities of logic. Where and how there are questions. What caused slavery? Which caused witch trials? What caused these things? One of the things we know is true always is a human fact, human nature breaching method that also forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded everyone to pretend to blame what it caused on other things, others, ourselves, even when using truths about that. And the breaching method measures and maintained, and still measures and maintains itself left out by logic. Because there is a singular use by itself that everyone left out because everyone didn't discern it. There's also all the plural uses are through our own. How it motivated our own through our own to sense for the breaching method if there was not collusion with each syntax of each instance description. Relative to the breaching method, individually grouped and together, colonies, possessions of the people's syntax, and or the interbranch, and or the exceptions tied to them, and or the difference of that. And this method uses all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims and victims' advocates, a court which are courts appointed, the campuses they went to, names with them, rules with predicate acts with facts, way worse than natures of crimes they're putting little kids and adults in jails for. Also, by faking it, readings as there are criminally foreign influence uses consciously by a breaching method of the sentence, don't litigate from the bench, where and how it measures and maintains readings of statutes that left out how the proper use of exceptions, exception, what's actually recorded showed them how to plant fake exceptions, fake motivations, where and how it's foreign influences, for example, themselves are increasingly demonstrated to each modern body. See, this breaching method knew that modern names would only be able to counter things like criminal foreign influences by uses simultaneously self-defended of their own names and or of a people's, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs them. You know, so where and how you've heard political arguments and what is complicated and or extensive and what is simple, therefore, you know, there are dishonest treatments of that, where and how part of this is roles where our founders communicated for us to understand where and how they did not have free speech. They had to leave fake things against everyone, fake words of everyone typed into databases for where and how there were employments of everyone sickly distinctly. Also, hyper additionally, as I grounds, we are hyper additionally the grounds identity, while not because of the relativity of where and how more forever nature is being made and where and how that is discernible to an extent. See, we have people that are using words like evidence and research in defenses of that, and where and how all natures of debate at all locations /s where are employed, sickly distinctly from how where and how formal evidence locations are employed criminally foreign influence to keep discern how the breaching method uses the difference of that relative to where and how nature uses difference to communicate. So we have the same color eyes, we have different color eyes at the same time. There is an identity of hyper simultaneous that we can't be and the other species bodies can't be it, but we are in any way. All the bodies of life, most of them have two eyes. The plants are a distinct form of life. So we could see how distinctly, non-distinctly, and hyper simultaneously, for example, the value of how the cell nucleus, cell body, cell walls manifest. So we have words like theory. So we have to appreciate the invisible but still discernible. But we're like oxygen. We have to have trust in other people that it exists the way they tell us it exists because we can't see it. We have we have the experiments for such separated. We have the science's self-valued being and having been abridged. We have the motivations of that propagated and maintained, self-cultivated, but by a breaching method. And the exceptions where there's self-cultivation, that's what's maintained by the breaching method. So defenses of logic regarding if someone says uses short words, the sciences remained, or if someone says the sciences remain criminally foreign influence. One of the ways this is gotten away with is because people will use nature. Oh, see, calmness and or aggression is prevented at all locations, and where and how there are behavior experts. They've already been exploited at all crime scenes relative to simultaneously remote uses of everyone's self-value where they don't want it at the same time, which is also manifest. Where and how. The breaching method also uses exceptions in exception nature in ways greater than and more finite than humanity. Humanity's names individually grouped in together. Because of the relativity of semi-ancient times, other things, others, or ourselves, blamed for the real cause of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. Again, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness, nature's wrongdoers. I'm not a lawyer. The news networks have roles with the agencies, with Wethersfield town offices, intercities town offices and police departments, fire departments, military. They're hiding behind, they're pretending people make conspiracy theories with other countries. They're changing what people say online. And they have fake conversations with us because they got caught needing to hide live progressions because of how the agencies, the only three branches of government, and there are exceptions tied to them, like there are places in Middletown involved with the training of and with the furtherance of uses of police departments juxtaposed with FBI, other agencies, military police, and roles with foreign nations. They have remote uses of those families. And they have wire crime acts and methods with the police departments faking transcripts into their databases. Uses of right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. But it's where and how the hierarchy, like former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. He has roles with wire crime acts and methods and with digital crimes with digital child offenders on and off the Wethersfield Police Department Facebook page. And with a prison-proven principal child abuser they forced and are still forcing roles with, then in other natures of organized crime and the difference of that. So they have the intelligence community training little kids where how those motivations are also being and having been used to screen other motivations involved with it. In other words, they've been planting motivations because there are foreign influences that are motivations that are being demonstrated to us by nature itself when we contemplate what the overt / insidious, leaving and having left out how the breaching method employed black and white to mean other than it does black pupils, whites of eyes. We're supposed to see the whites of eyes before we shoot. War had been employed. War / S had been employed since semi-ancient times relative to qualities of fact-keeping nature, incapable of defending themselves and of affording the quality of fact-keeping nature proper to overcome and get through the real causes worst of criminal foreign influences at our location areas and states, everywhere the species body is. The suburbs were designed to cause negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures. They were designed tactically denatured by the method that had effectively already fact-keeping nature enslaved modern countries A through Z. And they were sustaining this. They already had effectively replaced Native Americans' memory of their education and had been sustaining them. More and more, the only means to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures was to value roles with these new systems, economic systems, value systems other than the hyper-native system, let alone the native one. All natural difference / S, just like the Native American. That's an important distinction. Indigenous population, that's an important distinction because the formal governments are victims multi-front from the people to keep collusions and demonstrations of that by nature, blamed on other things, others ourselves. Fake patriotism. Where does it come from? How does it motivate it? This is shown to people sickly distinctly based on, this senses anyone who's gonna sense and discern for our founders. They're not going to leave out how the identities of the law were worthless while we're pretending other. How they got away with that by self-value roles, blaming what really caused the worst value nature progressions, action natures, kept them blamed on other things other than themselves. Also has collusions with criminally foreign influence prisons since semi-ancient times. Also, the history of Rome and of Catholicism and of Islam. The sciences have roles preventing what is said right at the beginning of the Old Testament and what is said right at the beginning of the Quran from being valued properly. There is conscious obfuscation. There are conscious obfuscations of, attempts to make to help us do damage control from the breaching method that modern religions are designed to help us use to show how fake law's nature, defenses and excuses haven't been employed by a breaching method that also employed other natures of employments to measure and maintain. Role self-cultivating what it propagated, where and how this syntactically. This is as identities of criminal insidiousness nature, as wrongdoers, per nature's definition. Nature, even if all the countries agree to take part of sick laws like that, even if people at the same time, nature itself is going to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Natures like wrongdoers, criminal insidiousness, criminal enterprises themselves. So all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims and victims advocates at the same time, news, locations, names, and stories, and names that live next to all those people and next to their sources. They're kept needing to hide and make up finite, active, and progressively increasingly finite details, group details, and simultaneously relative values. Because the hostage of the discernment of our value/value progression as a hypernative system. So we're supposed to appreciate how sickly distinctly the Native Americans were and are separated from what nature wanted and needs us to remember educationally, sickly distinctly from ourselves, but sickly non-distinctly too. And part of this, it is functional how it is hypernative. So with American history, it is part cipher. Not just because it's president/chief simultaneously, and that's still incompatible volume. Because every modern country's sciences are bridged since semi-ancient times. And the difference between that is criminal insidious nature and or the overt criminal enterprises. They fit them to collusion with the youngest ages as simultaneously uses of locations involved with elderly and with the have you ever seen the Veteran Affairs buildings, which are designed like the cities were unfolded, top-down infrastructure, tactically denatured, worse than the suburbs, which were designed tactically to nature to cause negative value nature progressions, acts of nature, to keep used remotely the humanity as the colonists, sickly distinctly from the humanity as the Native Americans, and them self-valued rules while syntactically describing instances, names, values, and then only capable of that, or that person would be sensed through individuals' grouped difference roles, natures, needs, tactical terror from how nature uses. Nature answers our questions about with relative to the topics and the subjects as they are presented in the news. But for example, the breaching method measured and maintains distinctly from our own, and it shows them individually grouped together. They're measuring and maintaining for their own interests and needs, and nature's need to hide from what nature is actually about. So, in other words, other things, others, or selves, even when they were correctly blaming things, including at courts, they've been using that to make mistakes on purpose and or increasingly relative are delusions they have, which that is a part of this too, how they can keep out the significance of how discernible, but invisible, but still discernible, a breaching method, singular, was uses consciously of laws that applied natural communications, like with the color black and the color white, to mean other things, and to effectively used to measure and maintain who's gonna sense and discern uses of that honestly, which will through our own law. See, because that uses correlation by where and how the interbranch, the private, overt criminal enterprises, insidiousness of people A through Z, and news planting evidences at the same time, and the campuses, overtly / insidiously still. If you watch the news, they have all kind of repeated, sustained sexual treatments regarding doctors and their patients, regarding sexual issues, where they're planting fake motivations, and they have roles with sexual and medical abuses of little boys and girls in those schools from other campuses, and with names next to them, with the medical locations, including ones with badges. How they've been getting away with this, they've been hiding behind how our nations share people together. People associated with former director of FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, roles with people from Australia, involved with locations at on-off campuses with the intelligence community, also involved with predicate acts on my street. Also, where and how they influence. There are remote uses of investigators as collusions with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones, and with people who are constantly planting evidences, and through others. So there are people when I was a kid that took pictures of me or described it, probably both, where I don't know them at all. I try to make fake exception that way. Has something to do with the roles, Parks and Recs, Wethersfield town offices, community center, involved with judges and prosecutors and agencies. Foreign and domestic military had been planting evidences intercities, on and off campuses, and with names next to them, with connections between them, which are also discernible relative to whole wire crime acts and methods recorded, placements with those companies, fake natures of integrity, where we're only allowed to speak or it would be discerned. Forgiveness is so we could have that quality of correlation that doesn't leave out how they overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and interbranch at the same time. Insidiousness, the logic of A through Z. At locations and or at formal communications locations was used. I don't know, man. That would be a good fight because it would be harder. It'd be harder for Tyson to get in on Ali. But Tyson, even he got it. He got that. I don't know. Buster Douglas could probably hit is probably as hard as Ali though, and he got up from that. So it was unbelievable. I saw Buster Douglas in a video punching like a 300-pound punching bag, and it was bending in half. Buster Douglas, Ohio, Lula Pearl Douglas Center. I hope the Lula Pearl Douglas Center is still standing. I don't know if it's still standing in Ohio. Ohio is good boxing. So we have all these answers. We have better than perfect science where there is an identity the science is shared. It's why the other species bodies have two eyes. Even the bugs have this consciousness shared to an extent. See, everywhere there are theories, intersciences, these theories are being used to maintain the qualities and nature of debate that can't defend themselves and afford a quality of fact-achieving nature at formal locations, sickly distinctly from all locations. So the more it can't afford it at formal locations, the more it can't afford it online. So the agencies have roles planting evidences also with courts, grouped predicate acts methods online, using the difference. FBI has roles with Facebook families. Personally, sometimes in the difference between that involvement and the retired and standing FBI and other agencies and foreign and domestic military have roles with uses of Facebook, planting it, crime roles with cases, all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims in courts of appointed advocates, names with the hallways of the courts, planting evidences at the same time with the news. WFSB recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They didn't say this sentence, hear no evil, see no evil. But that's what they're being influenced to do. Where and how identity theft, fraud, slander also involves them pretending to legitimately defend the name of themselves and of others because they've been attaching little kids to fake locations and ties to strangers, including with doctors, foreign and domestic, into databases through time, fabricating audio and video transcripts with police departments, families, and where and how relative they have state police, FBI, other agencies, military police, foreign and domestic, juxtaposed with our own police, who have roles with crime scenes originally and still, and with the difference of that, as the roles with the interbranch. Jay, what made you fall in love with boxing? Keep up the great work with the boxing videos. Thank you, Jay. I was gonna turn professional around the time, like a year or two after the World Trade Center attack. I was gonna complete my master's in education. I think I want to do linguistics though. But most importantly, I want to address what's intercampuses connected. When I was a little kid who went to a campus near me, I caught them with a principal child abuser at. I caught them forcing that too. You ever hear of those contexts where there are child abusers and you think, how could they not just tell someone? Because the investigators as such, has roles with conscious uses of juxtaposed natures of organized crime and influences over descriptions of instances and of names used. Central Connecticut State University is in New Britain, Connecticut. And they have roles with CNN national/international news on all sides of Central Connecticut State University with the intelligence community in New Britain. This including foreign and domestic military who have been roles planting evidences in databases, tactically delusions raw, all kinds of roles between nations fighting with each other. Meanwhile, they have juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crime roles, self-value, where and how its influences of and as their roles with wire crimes, falsified police reports, planting evidences at crime scenes roles, and with the names next to body dumping spots. Increasingly on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices are names involved with crime scenes used by themselves criminally foreign influence, including body dumping spots. On Facebook, Enzo Fianza, a recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He has cousins and family involved with a Dillon family, and one's on and off Two Route Highway, where / Hangdog Lane, and the conjunctions to these roads, where they have interbranch families, foreign and domestic, military and medical, involved with wire crime companies, placements too with the agencies, planting evidences, fabricating audio and video transcripts, including with the police. So the police forms have roles with doctors of psychiatry who are still tactically delusions wrought too. At the same time, while they have criminally foreign influence, natures of organized crime influences, and family members' roles with this. Hartford Hospital has roles with names next to the campuses, intercities, and they have roles with the names on off WFSB, involved with digital child sex offender crimes with them, fabricating emails too. And they have women judges involved with them with this, and women involved with whiting forensics through time involved with various natures of organized crime bodies before they were caught, federal criminals. The witness protection program is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved. A whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University. Eric Klotz confirmed this. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They brought him and his family members involved with predicate acts, with conversations with my teachers behind my back, with mayors and O'Brien family, the first ones that with the executive and political branch. I found out how the family members of the courts and of people like with tied to Sandy Hook per campuses, has the intelligence community with Sandy Hook campuses, has roles intercities with campuses, names at Central Connecticut State University, keeping names planted at child campuses, where and how that is used, criminally foreign influence. So there was something to do with people with the name Luigi Guerrera, who has been planting evidences with names on off election locations. They have roles with Hartford elections and Wethersfield elections, criminally foreign influence, where also criminal foreign influences are inseparable from proper descriptions of what employed black and white to mean other than it means, and what employed the nature of people if someone uses the word employment. Oh, well, I didn't understand. Your employment, I thought you were talking about employments. See that nature in people is maintained by a breaching method. There's a quality and nature of debate that is collusion with wire crime acts and methods that include polling of people over the phones, that includes uses of the debates regarding such because of the use of the location, use/s of location/s. So what we're going to do is have to, we have priorities. We have every modern country's suburbs were designed tactically denatured to force them to rely upon criminally foreign influence value nature systems and self-value uses of that, where and how nature uses value hyper additionally from the ways we do, where and how it shows us where it can be used to answer our question. See, but we have this offensively forbid free speech. And they're planting fake motivations because they're already, this, we have to understand how the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the three branches of government, and the killers, and the people next to the body dumping spots were all motivated. And are motivated. How people will be maintained to motivate, to pretend passions and emotions regarding such serious things. And if you pay attention, it's because that's being forced, entertained. So these locations interbranch only allowed to solve things formally, and the exceptions tied to them, like Hartford Hospital, has a whole bunch of names involved with judges and prosecutors retired and standing with Hartford courts and with the Britain Superior Court, Connecticut District Court, as names also with the Fianzas and Fazinos too, with judges and prosecutors, their family members involved with foreign and domestic medical families too, planting evidences and databases together, criminally foreign influence uses of campuses, including medical and fire campuses. They've been ducking between how Russians and Americans are shared here, Ukrainians and Americans are shared here. For example, self-valued roles with military, with psychiatry. You have sick, fake punks behind tactically delusions wrought with IQ, and debate about how to judge with the IQ. Our founders left us to demonstrate a bunch of fakes, pretending it's about the T-tax, a certain type of victim / hyper victim that came through campuses to have the short words assigned, other things, have identity assigned to sense for the breaching method. Our founders left us to correlate where and how. No one had integrity, including the interbranch, at the same time because of the breaching method. That's how you discern the breaching method. That's what's manifest when they speak about black pupils, white divide. They use that word. Oh, but I'm the only one helping them. Of course, you're the only one helping them. You're the only form of voice. You're keeping everyone individually. And everyone's keeping natures of unity and or of independence. Collusions where and how the simultaneous is being spoken for, communicated for, tactical terror from how nature needs us to. So everyone watched too, Judging Freedom with Judge Napolitano. And I forgot what I was going to make this video about. It was about too, Little Rap Guy and Friends. They're counter obfuscated / hyper counter hyper obfuscated, because this breaching method that each modern nation, thank God. By the way, thank God I'm using it as a function for my program, for my programming, and my intellectual property rights are being stolen by methods where and how also relative are lawyers of the FBI and their locations. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with Farmington Avenue, with Asylum Street in Hartford, for example. With the intelligence community also on off the state of Connecticut, the state capital, and on off Harriet Beecher Stowe, Mark Twain House, and the names and the locations next to it, where the intelligence community takes pictures of people next to each other. And those people further lie progressions, where and how they have roles with predicate acts with facts and databases, identity theft, fraud, slander, is one of the things manifest sickly distinctly against each person to keep how sickly non-distinctly functional by a breaching method, where and how it's left out by identities of logic, even though nature is increasingly demonstrating that relative. To understand how this can be motivated, you have to study it. I've been studying this since I was a kid. People from Central Connecticut State University influenced confessions to me in the form of when you walk around the corner and so you don't know who said it. This is also relative to mistreatments measured and maintained effectively used by a breaching method of what happened to John F. Kennedy, even if they made it up. The same way, even if they made up witch trials, we could discern that one thing we know that they were about anyway was factory nature slavery of everyone. One thing we know. So that was entrenched north and south. So CNN has sources, interbranch, and other natures, and the difference of that, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also as Fox News' sources, telling them things sickly distinctly. They're not legitimately. No, when people blame things on politics that are not politics, they're simultaneously self-valuing. Contrasts and fights between people that wouldn't have been and or that would have been resolved. Not in a way that would stay collusions, where and how relative are collusions with all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims and victims advocates being used to plant fake things in databases, while the interbranch switch names and switch sequences per relative remote uses of identities and how they work, where and how we are value/value progression. Deep state is an understatement. So there are proofs, there are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles of police forms associated with the sources. In former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. He has roles with the guy with the horns on and CNN news stories involved with wire crime methods with them, identity thefts and frauds, slanders with them. On off all sides of Central Connecticut State University with foreign and domestic military, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. Simultaneously, one of the things they shared with that as roles with people from Whiting Forensics who were planting evidences on campuses I went to, and between, they made connections between the people. There's a Ray Reynolds, who they apparently took pictures of me next to, who I never tried to contact. He's been used to plant evidences with people there, with judges and prosecutors, people in with the intelligence community involved with a Kevin Harris and with a Rick C.M. Faglione, with names near me that put me in fake locations, fake ties, fake natures of ties to themselves and to others. Like a Joshua Julian, I don't know at all. They repeated his name to me when I walked by. I heard, they made me hear his name. These are also people involved with where they ask people if they have a photographic memory. I remember when I was in kindergarten, because there were houses next to it, I found out are involved, planting evidence, identity theft, fraud, slanders. And with uses of a Ray Reynolds, they involved with this. And fake motives, because it's off campuses. But then this has been sustained from off campuses. Fake integrity of federal and or of locations, areas, and states. Natures of hierarchies, known and unknown, to use Donald Rumsfeld's description of, because it's also World Trade Center predicate acts roles. And his sources at the World Trade Center. World Trade. They have rules with natures of industry that can't be defended and us at the same time. And those natures of industry can't be let go of. Otherwise, we get hurt by where and how. Our founders left us to demonstrate, as other founders did, but we haven't done it. When we're communicating about international economic impositions and things like that, you guys left out the breaching method individually grouped them together. So thank God our countries are all guilty together of what hurts each other together. See, but this is how thank God is a function. See, but relative to descriptions of an understanding of reason that is sane. See, but we have experts on we have doctors of logic. Experts on logic have been fabricating audio and video conversations with people. That's how they got away with it so long. A whole bunch of names at Hartford Hospital and next to their location in Hartford, for example. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, have roles with agencies and courts, planting evidences with shipping identity, with shipping locations too, UPS, the Wethersfield post offices, locations next to them. This is where and how they get people to defend their identities, where they're simultaneously going to be defending qualities and natures of facts you've needed. They can't defend themselves and afford what's actually recorded to be discerned. So UPS has roles with the intelligence community. UPS in Hartford, Connecticut has roles with the intelligence community on off Central Connecticut State University, on off New Haven FBI, on off Connecticut news locations that have been planting evidences at crime scenes, on off campuses, fake motivations planting. It's also increasingly their roles, like with the Defianzas, on and off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices in conjunctions to it and to that. As people involved with conjunctions to and as one's names along Hangdog Lane / 2-Route Highway have been influenced by identity theft, fraud, slanders. It's nothing personal. They tried to make it look personal with some of the instances and names involved. These are also extended family members of probate judges and of Connecticut of New Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, Connecticut District Court, with judges and prosecutors putting fake things in databases, formally roles and informally, and as roles with predicate acts with WFSB, WTNH, uses of readings of the law, like summaries, like with the right to lie, where they're planting fake motives roles, with a James Comey, who's one of the names recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with also the lawyer of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and his law offices are increasingly involved with people who had conversations with coaches that I never had conversations with, involved with use of that /S, which is also relative increasingly to remote uses of syntactical descriptions of instances and of names where everyone lives, that where and how they have the sense and sensibilities employed as everyone has criminal seizures nature. When you guys get feared, when I ask you to get a response for the interbranch switching names still, that's evidence. This is not the forgiveness. They don't want us to have forgiveness because they have collusions also differentially, not wanting, but increasingly exceptions are made for them, with the prisons tied to them. So on off the state judicial branch offices in Wethersfield, a number of people that have roles with timed use of the names associated with the witness protection program, who also have timed uses of corners of streets near me to plant evidences and fake motivations, with all sides in criminal and civil cases relative, as names involved with the names at the World Trade Center, as names with foreign and domestic military on and off Central Connecticut State University, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed that and Eric Klotz and his neighbors are involved with ones with the name Tomorrow and Hanson, and others at Central Connecticut State University, who also recorded with and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with intelligence community that was next to them. They're involved at homes next to, in locations next to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, further involved with the names that were used to abuse kids. Also, within as ones with sexual circles, with the leaders of the Department of Children and Families, have roles with judges and their family members and things like that, where they have employments. Also, relative to where and how natural differences stays forced by the only people allowed to speak for that, forcing, doing it fake while pretending other. And then pretending it's personal. So they've been using evidences as collusions, the courts too, with all sides in criminal and civil cases, the victims and victims advocates and the lawyers at the same time planning fake motivations whilst as roles stacking predicate acts with facts into databases. Fake motivations for their uses of other people's names. So there are people with Trantolo involved with the intelligence community, for example. They have wire crime acts and methods with foreign and domestic military and medical, with child offenders, sexual, medical, other natures of organized crime at the same time on and off campuses. And as their roles with advertisers, there are people involved with the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police with child sex offenders. Further then and now, they have people with the name Schumack and is involved with the mother of a Joshua Schumack and with that person involved planting evidences with foreign and domestic families and interbranch through time. Fire departments and campuses used criminally foreign influence. They planted evidences, identity thefts and fraud, slanders all along Route 175. Also with the extended family members of police chiefs with the same house/S involved with them with wire crimes, Wethersfield Police. They have been preventing writing since I was a kid. This is per a whole bunch of extortion acts and methods against everyone sickly distinctly, because we have not addressed that sickly, honestly, as the tortures and extortion of our founders, who had to counter-extort the other founders. No. So Hartford Hospital also has roles with the investigations of the World Trade Center attack. When the military roles with Hartford Hospital, criminally foreign influence since before our founders were born. That location, and since its roles with slavery north and south, as our founders had to leave it entrenched per the breaching method. Their roles with the breaching method while pretending other, therefore. They also have relative tactical delusions with interpretations of American history and with descriptions of other people's names. Also, increasingly, Hartford Hospital has roles with predicate acts with names on Church Street in Old Wethersfield and conjunctive to it, who've been planting evidences on campuses and using methods of that through time. So Ray Reynolds is one of the people involved with the campus. Each of the campuses I went to, there are people with fake communications with me, fake instances. They made one quick fake instance with Ray Reynolds. There were people with the name Harris involved with medical corruption with kids, foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence uses of campuses for identity theft, fraud, evidences planting, fake motivations planting, identity theft, fraud, slander, on and off Quinnipiac University. These are people involved with judges and prosecutors who've been planting evidences between campuses of all ages and natures through time. These are also interstates roles with state police forms and families and FBI and other agencies with the military too. A whole bunch of people tied to narratives regarding those Vermont campuses associated with Dr. Shub's confessions, a modern language professor, and his family's involvements with probate courts and with the judge's family members involved with predicate acts with names on my street that they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also involved on Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway. planting evidences, intercampuses through time. These are also people that sought me out. I never sought out, you know, to plant evidences, and they pretended other with people I don't know at all, as roles with who also have roles with home break-ins in the area, where overt criminal enterprises in the intelligence community at the same time have roles with that, also with wire company people, like with the name Spada and Walters, Chris Walters and a Claw also have roles with the name. A whole bunch of people, and with the fines, people with the name having roles with Mendez police, and people with the name Domain, involved with sequence shifts and with criminally foreign influenced men and women who abused boys and girls, who had roles with abuses of boys and girls in my area through time, who made them use that effectively to have them self-value, identity theft, fraud, slanders, instances, roles, under the guise of intelligence people too, roles that legitimately not. And you know, they're the ones bringing this up. Whiting forensics is increasingly tied to crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught with the crime scenes. What Sandy Hook has roles with, as the people roles with the same names and ties to them involved. Big world, small world, because you guys are criminally foreign influence. They say it's interstates. Something to do with the training of them is criminally foreign influence. Interstates with the ones with Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Vermont involved here. Increasingly with the ones with wire crimes with Wethersfield police, falsified police reports, preventing writing while pretending other. Get them on paper, please. Have them respond, because these are wars. These are worse than war crimes. These are illegitimate, and they're only looking for who's going to blame too. Wrong. They already blamed everything wrong. There are Sandy Hook has roles with the military too. They should fear God to wait, hide, and plot. Get the O'Briens on paper with them, and with this Phil Colon that Bob Chase brought up. They were preventing me writing. Bob Chase has roles with Phil Colon, with falsified police reports, roles with drugs and medicines crimes, with child sex offenders, leaders of kids, medical offenders too. Fake conversations with kids timed with the newspaper at the same time to stop people from being able to speak and pretending they spoke at the same time. Then people use the phrase conspiracy theory. We're going to show how there is no integrity to any identity of a hierarchy, where they also have that used in their voice, sickly, because they want value by what classes they took. We're going to examine this. Criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that Russians have with Wethersfield police. They have lawyers associated with them also planting evidences and or tactically delusions wrought, and the difference of that too, used remotely. So don't forget, nature uses difference ways hyper additionally from how we know it uses difference. So they're planting evidence as fake motivations. How they get away with it through time. We have to get them on paper. There are proofs that, behavior. There are people dishonestly pretending they're against the behavior of presidents if they yell. One of the reasons they're needing to yell is because they're forced to entertain groupthink. But what it really is even greater than that and worse than that and more finite. Because it's using how consciously and through our own additional ways. But it's using it the way everyone missed. You guys are keeping blame to other things, others ourselves. Where the breaching method is an answer /s, because it's simultaneously relative to where and how this is nature's identity of relationship to itself, as systems tactical ulterior from what is positive to itself, where and how it is positive to all parts of space /existence equally, but then further with relativity to with the relativity of a special difference to and as the value of Earth's concentrated difference, hyper-additionally from and while as our own, hyper-additionally as its. Also positive onto the shared identity, or it's forced from here. So we didn't reveal how and why we have two eyes. Exceptions. And other species bodies didn't reveal why and how they have two eyes. Exceptions, exception nature. But there is a shared identity that I did. And one of the things we could discern it as using science is a hyper-simultaneous nature, a distinct identity of simultaneous nature that comes with the three individual group difference /S and species volume. And note them, these difference /S, this difference /S. Also manifest. How manifest in demonstration in communications with the word difference. See, reason, actually honest reason, you discerns how reason uses in ways greater than and more finite than math. How it uses words like value, words like identity, but then how exactly the way math does. So this is how it shows. It's how it is a hyper additional nature. How its identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that. How everything is actually manifest. The top of the A points back towards, top of the Z points back towards the A, which is what is positive to its system here, hypernative pure again. If we ignore that, we can't appreciate indigenous, how they're hurt by the breaching method sickly distinctly in the past, so we can't, or now. Because this is connected too, because how it communicates is as a forever nature, is as why you remember an extent of the past that was true always. You know was true always. And you know there's an extent you know that is to come. And if you are wrong about either that, there's a way to check even before the time that has come. And there's a check to check what you've been thinking about the past. The identity that is true always, not denying any exceptions, not valuing them deny, is an identity of truth, like how and why we have black pupils, whites of eyes. It is a nature of truth that comes with revelations. So those short words come with more. They come with revelations that answer other questions. But these revelations also come with means to discern. Dishonestly pretending other answers in place of the answers our founders left us to communicate for themselves too. We're supposed to address the fact, human nature, torture, and extortion of George Washington honestly. And this comes to the addressment of the fact, human nature's slavery of everyone. And so we're going to address this now. And it's also with the World Trade Center. They have roles with all kinds of natures of delusions with psychiatry, where they have police forms, where they self-value. That's one of the things that gives them higher rank if they take these classes. And those locations, all the campus locations, are being and having been used by a breaching method to measure and maintain where everyone's going to be. Per a method by that. Fear God, because locations, areas, states, look around. Since before our founders were born, the suburbs were tactically denatured for torture and extortion that we haven't addressed relative to it measured and maintained roles self-value with its breaching method while the cities were built. We know the suburbs, in other words, only capable of relying upon criminally foreign influence value progression systems should fear God. because we have means way beyond this. Yeah. Vaccines, the means appear. Vaccines.